Well, once again, everybody, welcome to another edition of After Further Review with Mark Ferreira and John Pelkey. Jeff Taylor, our producer on the board. As always, wherever you are, whenever you're listening, whatever you're listening on, however you're listening, you have to cover everything now. Welcome and thanks for listening. Big day on top, Mark. It's Overreaction Monday, which will bleed into Overreaction Tuesday, and will bleed into Overreaction Wednesday this week as well.
Yes,
because of Tuesday Night Football. But before we get into that, before we discuss the end of Pete Carroll's reign in Seattle, and
that's pretty clear,
and
Russell Wilson really being one of the most overrated quarterbacks.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think there's any doubt. I would say right now, if you got a Drew Lock or Russell Wilson, I think Lock might, for the money. Might be your choice.
I'd say a push at this point in time.
All right. Okay. What else? The Giants.
We are overreacting, John, and we have to overreact to the elephant in the room right now. We have to overreact to that first before we move on.
Okay, we'll do that. I also just want to let everybody know we'll talk a little college football because that's getting more and more interesting. Clearly, obviously for Oregon. Once they were out of the national championship race, decided to take the rest of the season off, and who can frankly blame them? The Pac-12 remains the most entertaining conference that will never achieve anything in college football. But apparently there's an elephant in the room. So
it's whatever you're wearing on your head, John. It's whatever you're wearing.
Yeah, I got a thing holding my hair together today. Yeah.
So is that a what's that called? A band, a hairband, a hair?
Yeah, it's my wife's hairband. It's Jody's hairband. It's in a
scrunchie.
It's a scrunch in a periwinkle blue. And it's
So what's the difference between periwinkle and navy?
Navy's much darker. I think there was somebody told me this once. A guy, I worked for a guy in a tuxedo rental store. A guy very, very smart. Went to Penn. Not everybody who goes there is very, very smart, but he was. He told me once that the difference between true navy blue and black is that if you have those colors on the same surface, that the navy blue, I believe he said, would be 1 to 2 degrees cooler than the black. That's one way you can tell, because sometimes you have the incredibly dark navy blue. Yeah, and periwinkle is more, it's more of a sort of pale blue sort of thing. So that's really what this is. I know it's a little hard to say. But I knew you'd make fun of it.
Is there? No, I'm not making fun of it. I just question the necessity of it.
It's because the hair is long and gets to my eye.
Your hair will be in your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. I
don't know. I have a need for you to prove that right now to us. I don't know, Jeff. Do you join me in this need? Like you can take it out. Just take it out, John, real quick, and shake your hair and let's see how far down it goes into your eyes.
I'm willing to take part in this, but I couldn't care less.
Yes. See, but for somebody like Mark, Jeff, who hasn't had to deal with hair in his eyes since the Hoover administration, then I think there's.
I've never had to deal with hair in my eyes, John.
No, because yours goes out instead of Mine did that when I was younger. When I was younger. When my hair was actually dark. It was had a lot more body and was a lot curlier, so it would grow out. So I feel you, Mark. I always wanted to be able to pull the hair back, but it has become a bit of a thing, and I'll probably be getting a little bit of a trim. Though I'm going to stay with the longer hair look because it seems to be a favorite of the ladies. You can't. Well, I mean, come on, honestly. What other reason would I have to do it other than saving money?
So did you see Brian Ascari, Chief of the Fire's comment? It's pretty hilarious.
All right, fair enough. That's my Squad 51 touring days are clearly over.
They're probably in the past. Yes,
yeah.
John. You probably missed your opportunity.
I have my Randolph Mantooth T-shirt that I wanted to wear when I was there. Might have been a little too much anyway, but So I don't even remember what I was saying because that
overreaction Monday.
You're going to cut your hair and you're not going to show up with scrunchies anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to show up with scrunchies in the hair for the Raptor gig. So I'll probably be cutting it a little bit. Though I'm going to keep it a little bit long. Going for a different look because it doesn't matter. Never work in a theme park again. Those jobs are not coming back, people.
Probably not. Lenny's joining us right now. We want to thank Lenny.
Yes.
John, I want to thank Lenny from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes, absolutely. Well done, Lenny. And Lenny announcing his retirement this week as well, which is something you and I probably should have done in March, but we held out hope.
Well, yeah, and there was no entity, there was no huge corporate entity offering us this wonderful retirement package either. So
well, it's so funny that that you said that. It reminds me of a friend of mine, my friend who played football at Virginia. There was a guy who played with him, an offensive lineman who is still to this day the funniest man I ever met. Funniest guy ever. I think he was from Naples. Anyway, really good guy, Jim Huddleston, a good college football player. But and I think he tried to sign as a free agent out of college to make an NFL team. And he did not make the team, but he had some sort of pull with the news organization. So he never played it down, to my knowledge, in the National Football, even a preseason game or whatever practice. But he had it in the paper when he announced his retirement from the NFL. Which I just thought was if you knew Jim Huddleston, it was absolutely perfect. He let everybody know, if you're looking for me, you're not going to find me. I'm retiring. So congratulations, Lenny, for your retirement. Yeah, Overreaction Monday. Mark is just amused by the comments. Hasn't paid any attention to me. Didn't hear it when I
mean, you're talking about Jim Huddleston or John.
Well, I'm just pointing out it is very funny to announce it. Okay. Wow. Oh, all right. Wow, I see who you're channeling. Notes during the show. There it is. Yeah.
No,
wow. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Somebody's got to pick up that mantle, Mark.
I'm not.
Somebody's got to pick it. It's going to be you.
That's true.
It's going to be you.
No. I'm not paying attention. You know me, John. I don't take copious notes.
No,
I just check out when I'm not quite engaged as much as I was more engaged in looking at Lenny and Brian's comments than I was talking about Jim Huddleston. Nothing against you. I'm always engaged with you for the most part.
Reach out to Jim Huddleston and let him know you have issues with him. It's fine.
I really don't have issues.
Former offensive lineman Jim Huddleston.
Right. He could squash me.
That's right. Great athlete.
Yeah.
Father, I think, was a dentist, so he's got money. Just essentially
everything.
Chasing you down and making you pay for this is not going to be difficult for Jim Huddleston. It really isn't. So,
no, really well. And
so buckle up.
Where does he live these days?
Buckle up. I don't know. I'm going to look into that further. All right, here we go. Overreaction Monday. I have a trivia question I'm going to ask. But before I ask the trivia question, Mark, I'll give you a moment to think about this. What was the biggest surprise for you from yesterday? Because there were a couple. I think we would all agree that there were a couple of big surprises yesterday. What were the biggest surprises for you?
Well, I think the biggest surprise was the Giants, obviously beating the Seahawks in Seattle. New York Giants, who I think were 10-point underdogs, roughly, something along those lines.
Yeah,
that was the biggest surprise. It was a little surprising that Kansas City had such a tough time with Denver.
Well, and I got to tell you, for me,
and
45-0, the Patriots over. San Diego, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I didn't think San Diego was that bad. They're certainly not that bad talent-wise. The other side of that coin, Mark, is whoever thought the Patriot offense that we've been watching would put 45 points on anyone? They seem like they're limited, but they're starting to find something with Cam that asks of him to do the things that he does well.
That's true, but I think they also had a couple of either defensive touchdowns or special teams touchdowns. It was a little bit of an
still, if they put 31 points on anybody, it's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. There's no doubt about it. And San Diego just really fallen off a cliff.
Justin Herbert has been able to put up points against everybody. Even, it's just that would really, really shock me.
They figured him out. They figured that guy out. He's done.
That's it.
He's done.
That's it.
No, I mean, he's a shell of what he once was. I mean, it was a flash in the pan.
In week 8, he was such a better player in week 8.
He really was. He really was. The defenses hadn't figured out. Usually takes a year and a half to figure out kind of newfangled things, and it's taken NFL defenses 4 games.
And the love and the love that the love that the Giants are getting, to your point, is hysterical now because Joe Judge. Who is Joe Judge? And now he and Brian Flores, it's like, oh boy, this late group of Belichick guys is doing well. Boy, early on they weren't great, but now look, and it's
Overreaction Monday.
Yeah. Now it's that hilarious. Said, I do think Seattle. We've talked about Seattle. They are an imperfect team, and there are things that they're going to have to do better if they're going to win at all.
But I mean, it wasn't their defense is still playing well. That was the thing we were all concerned about through most of the season. And then yesterday, they couldn't do anything.
They couldn't run the football at all.
And they harassed Russell Wilson. I think they
did.
sacked him another 5 times. I think he threw another couple or had another couple turnovers. I mean, it's just very interesting when their offense doesn't do what they've got DK Metcalf, one of the top receivers in the NFL, and Russell Wilson, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL and maybe of all time. I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer already.
Yeah.
And their defense, they allowed 17 points? I mean, their defense is playing fine.
Yeah.
That was very surprising. And then, of course, Cleveland just taking it to Tennessee.
I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No, and I mean, I know the final score was a 7-point margin, but it was not.
Well, they blew them out in the first half.
Not even near as close as that. It was never a game.
They blew them out in the first half, and I think 2 things in the second half. I think Cleveland, and people were saying this today, and I usually laugh at this sort of thing, but they're just so not used to playing with a big lead that I think that coaches and players, I think they were a little confused by that. And also, Mike Vrabel's a very, very good coach, and Tennessee's obviously made some halftime adjustments to slow them down offensively. But Cleveland plays like that, they can win a playoff game. And I think most people thought just getting there for them was the ceiling. But if they play that well, being able to run the ball that well, and the way Baker Mayfield is playing now within, I think he's going to have to, as they move on, I think they're going to have to open that offense up a little bit. They're going to have to do some more. They're going to have to be able to go downfield a little more. But as long as they're able to run the ball like that, and if their defense plays like they played in the first half, that's a pretty good football team, frankly.
They're 9-3. They're 9-3.
You can't just dismiss that. You cannot just
not
dismiss
at all.
that.
And they just beat, and there were 2 8-3 teams playing each other, and they essentially blew them out. I mean, I know Tennessee came back, but it was garbage. I thought it was a lot of garbage time stuff. They were out. They were down, 4 touchdowns.
Brian Ascari bringing up the fact that the Chargers also suffered horribly on special teams. They didn't play well. I agree with all of that, but I still think you have to look at Bill Belichick and the Patriots and the way they're trending, the way they're playing, and getting more used to Cam. He's getting rave reviews. I know he's not the player that he once was, and I think it's fairly obvious, but he's getting nothing but praise for his work ethic. And you wonder if he hadn't had to miss the couple of games that he did, where would they be right now? Because they're still in the hunt for playoffs, and stranger things have happened.
They're not far. They're like a game. They're like a game out of the 7th.
Game and a half out of the 7th, I think.
Yes, something like that. But it's remember also they had a half a yard to gain to beat Seattle. They missed that. The fumble by him against Denver. Not only did he miss some games, but there were also games at the last second they could have won.
Yeah.
The fact that they've had to adjust from Tom Brady and with not a very good roster at all, and Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay with a very, very good roster, and Tampa Bay's only 1 game ahead of the Patriots after 12, that's pretty noteworthy. That is pretty darn noteworthy. So the whole thing about, it's all Brady. It's obviously Brady. Well, let's rethink. Let's just settle in on the idea that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are the best coach and quarterback in the history of the NFL, and just forget about it.
Hard to argue with.
Compare anything like that. It's
hard to argue with it, and no one player can carry any team. You have the other players around you, or in that case with Belichick and Brady, the only player I ever remember carrying anybody. Well, I guess you can argue LeBron certainly has done that, carried a team almost single-handedly. But Danny Manning for Kansas in 1987. Was it 87? I think anyway, 87,
88 was the Kansas
87,
team.
88 was 88, 7, 88 was that season.
88. They
March
won
of 88. Yeah. I mean, he was a one-man team, but it was Belichick and Brady. That's why they won so much. That's why
also Larry Brown, though. I want to give Larry Brown credit for that.
All right, fair enough. Larry Brown.
Is that who Belichick took over for? So there's a lot of talk about the fact that Belichick would be a lot better with Brady as a quarterback, but Brady would be a lot better off if he had a better coach in Tampa as well. I think he's starting to take some blame, the coaching in Tampa.
Well, I think Bruce Arians is a terrific coach. I just don't necessarily see a great fit for what Brady's
that's exactly what
doing.
I'm hearing. Yep.
But we'll see. I mean, that
you just want, he's just set in his ways, Bruce Arians. That's the thing.
And probably Tom Brady is a little bit as well.
I know, but you'd think if you're going to bring in a 43-year-old quarterback, that I don't care how old you are as a coach or how set in your ways you are as a coach, you need to adjust your offensive schemes for that. And it's like a guy like, and I'm going to bring up, I'm going to be a homer now, but a guy like Kyle Shanahan can be creative with his personnel. Joe Gibbs, your favorite coach, one of the best coaches of all time, could be creative with his personnel. And Bruce Arians is, in a way, trying to fit Tom Brady into his schemes.
Yeah.
And it's not working, Bruce. You've got a great roster. Figure it out. You're a good offensive mind, a very good offensive mind, according to everyone out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think, maybe Jameis's problems last year weren't all his fault either, perhaps.
Possibly not. Now people talking about the Saints and thinking Hill could be, maybe he is the quarterback of the future, when I think most people thought he was going to be this slash type player his whole career.
And a stopgap thing, and look at him. He's totally stepping up, playing well.
Derek Abbott filling in. Derek actually listening to the show when he's not on it. Derek, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't listen to the show if I wasn't on it. Oh, I guess I've actually done that before. Chargers,
3 consecutive punts. They had the wrong number of men on the field.
You can fire the special teams coach, but I liked Anthony Lynn.
As do I.
But I just don't see, if you're ownership there and you have a Justin Herbert, you can't take you can't do a Jerry Jones has done in Dallas. Sometimes you just keep a guy around for a bit because you like him and hope that it gets better. That's an attractive job for somebody moving forward as well. All right.
Derek right on the money, though, for Cleveland. He was really focusing on Baker Mayfield. And there's another overreaction Monday. Baker Mayfield is now an elite quarterback in the
Pro Bowler, all pro, probably. The hell with that.
I would say all pro at this point.
If he retires today, first ballot Hall of Famer mark, or does he have to wait for 2?
He probably has to wait for 2.
All right, fair enough. Seems fair. Seems fair. One of the all-time greats.
I mean, if he continues to play at this level, and of course it's one game, that's what I'm reading. If he continues to play at this level, they're a force to be reckoned. Well, I think they're 9-3 in a pretty competitive AFC, so they're a force to be reckoned with regardless. But based on one game, if he continues to play like this, it's one game. It's the equivalent of 10 games in Major League Baseball.
Why haven't we seen the same thing with Tua though? From one game to the next, that the take recently on Tua was like, I'd keep playing him because you got to see if you want to draft one of these, you want to get a pick higher in the draft and pick up one of these 4 or 5 great quarterbacks coming out. Because, I tell you, game 2, his second start, 2 whole starts, Mark.
I know.
2 hours worth of football, like 24 minutes worth of on-field action. And we've decided that's it. But then, then he had another good 12 minutes and he became, he can get it done. Before I get to and I know this is just free form today because there's just too much to talk about. And I do want to get to my trivia questions because I find it's a 2-part trivia question. I find it really interesting. But where there is a quarterback controversy and I think a legitimate one is in Philadelphia right now. And I don't necessarily think, Carson Wentz's career is over. But Jalen Hurts came in yesterday and he played relatively well. And that team looked horrible. Horrible. What do you do? Do you start Jalen? I guess
you do. Of course you do.
I think you have to, don't you?
Do. And that's the thing about Doug Peterson, who I never trusted when they fired Andy Reid and put him in.
We were so down on him.
We really were, and he goes off and wins a Super Bowl and makes us look like idiots, which, of course, is really most people's jobs.
To make us look like idiots?
Contact with it. Yes, exactly. But I don't think he's handling this very well at all. The whole Foles versus Wentz situation, and now the next quarterback coming in, as opposed to Flores. Look at what Flores has done.
Yeah.
He pulls Tua. He brings in Fitzpatrick, starts him for another game or two, whatever it was, and then then brings in Tua. And like there's no issues.
Well, now let me just say this: much as I'd like to disagree vehemently with you about that, I don't vehemently disagree. But I will say the big difference is the fact that Carson Wentz was a first-round draft choice, and Ryan Fitzpatrick
was Tua.
Is a journeyman, right? And Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, is a journeyman. And I think the fear in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know whether I completely believe this is a legitimate fear. In fact, I think competition is generally good for guys. Is that you destroy Carson Wentz psyche if you do that, and you've already invested all this a crap load of money in him. And Fitz he's a journeyman. Fitz is the perfect guy to have. Jalen Hurts, I think, would be better off if there was a Fitzpatrick in Philadelphia than he would with a Carson Wentz, because you just can't have as quick a hook on a guy as your former first-round pick.
And if Miami had paid Fitzpatrick what Philadelphia has paid Carson Wentz so recently, Tua would not sniff the field.
But again, remember all of the Sturm and Drang we thought about is like, oh, wait a minute, Tua is going to start. What happens if he struggles?
Right.
What happens if they pull him and they pull in and they start Fitzpatrick or they replace him mid-game with Fitzpatrick, which they did? Is that going to destroy Tua's confidence? The speculative game out there is the same with Philadelphia as it was. It was just as heightened as it was with Miami, and we're not talking about it at all anymore because they're handling it perfectly.
Although you already had an example of Tua losing the starting quarterback job and coming back, so he had already kind of shown that he had that kind of psyche to handle.
But not according to
and out
heads. I mean, I agree with you with Nick Saban and getting pulled in a championship game for crying out loud, but not according to the talking heads. It was like, uh-oh, what will happen? And the same thing with Carson Wentz. It's if Carson Wentz, Joe Montana was pulled for Steve Young. Okay? Yeah. They were paying Joe Montana a lot more than they were paying Steve Young. And but
we're talking about a great top-down executive to coaching staff, one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. Those guys could do anything they wanted and it would work.
I know, but none of that was for sure in 1987 or 88. They had only won 2. I mean, but still, there was a lot of talk because they had continued to lose first-round playoff games. You know what I mean? We're after further review, John. I mean, I know it's probably I err on the wrong side, but I just tend to dismiss all that crap.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is a professional. He's not going to be destroyed.
And again, I prefaced this by saying I don't know if I buy all of that, because I think, I don't know how these guys are any different in the pros than they are when they're in college. And all college coaches will tell you there's nothing better than having a competition for guys year in and year out. And we've seen that with Jalen Hurts. My God, his team gets to a national championship game and he gets benched. And has to go and play somewhere else. So, yeah, I don't know that I 100% believe it, but, to your point, it's what everybody talks about when quarterback changes are made. It's all anybody talks about. All right, I want to ask my trivia question right now, because I think it's very interesting. The last one I asked was talking about ratings for Super Bowl games. So I started thinking, which college football bowl game, and full disclosure, Mark, it is not the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl of any season. Which college football bowl game got the best ratings of all time? And which college football regular season game? And I will tell you this, that the regular season game is over 25 years old. It's over 25 years old. The best rated, and we'll all remember the game I bring it up.
I would guess right off the top, Miami, Notre Dame.
It is not a Miami Notre Dame.
Wow.
It's Catholics and Convicts. Were you thinking it was the Catholics and Convicts game?
Yeah, I mean, that was 88. So that was, 20. I mean, that was 32 years ago. That's over 25.
Yeah. And the College Bowl game was not a recent one either. So just think about that for a minute. I will.
I had a trivia that we didn't get to.
Okay.
On Friday, but I'll save it. I'll save it for Wednesday.
All right, I'd forgotten that. I didn't
I
remember
know.
that. I try to forget the shows once they're over.
Well, and you just don't pay attention to what I'm saying.
What? All right, let's just jump back to the NFL for a bit. The Patriots we've covered. I think they're going to be a difficult out moving through the season.
No doubt.
They also have a game against Miami, which is going to help them in a playoff run. Boy, I tell you, if they get to the playoffs, then he is the coach of the year. He is the coach.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I mean,
he won't get it. He probably won't get it.
I would say though, if the Niners somehow get to the playoffs, he'll have some competition.
Lenny, it is not the Nebraska-Oklahoma Thanksgiving game from many, many years ago. That is not the game, but that is a good guess. Well, I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to win Coach of the Year either. But there's no reason that team should be playing as well as it is, or should have been playing over the last few weeks as well as it is, and now it's getting healthy. So they're still in the mix in the wild, wild west, which is where I wanted to move next. The Los Angeles Rams, who we just think of them as light and not really if everything goes well, they're okay. But at the first sign of anything going poorly, they're in the lead in the NFC West, which I think we all agree has the best teams in football.
They're in the lead right now. Now, last week, and this is the NFL, folks, can we please embrace the ridiculousness of how temporal our reactions are to the NFL? I mean, literally, how the Gossamer reaction. Because last week at this time, John, they had lost the 49ers. They had lost their lead in the West. And what's wrong with the Rams? 1 week later, Seattle loses. They beat the Cardinals in a great performance on their part. Cardinals are
struggling. Really,
they're 6-6 right now. They're out of the playoffs. You know who's the 7th seed in the playoffs right now? The Minnesota Vikings.
Just keep getting it done.
I'll tell you, that's why the NFL is great. That's why the NFL is great, and that's why college football is not. Because there is a chance to redeem yourself through the course of the season. And I know that if you win late, blah-de-blah, that happens in college, but it's one loss. It's not starting off 1-5 like the I
agree,
or whatever they were.
Yeah, I agree.
And now they're 6-6. And at any rate, yes, the Rams are a formidable team. They really are. And someone said this. I think it was Derek actually last week that said, I think maybe Shanahan just has his number. I think he's just in McVay's head. Because they've won 4 in a row against the Rams, and the Rams are a formidable team.
And we talk about divisional rivals
2 years ago. They're 8-4 right now. They're in first place in the hardest division.
And it's also divisional rivals. When you see a team twice a year, you know teams in the division generally catch up more. It's why through the Belichick Brady years, Miami always, and just bad Miami football teams, Mark, would always pull off some sort of upset, and we would say, oh, it's the Heat in Miami in September. They just get to see them a lot, and I think it's helpful. I really do.
All right, so I always get this confused. It's like between Major Harris and Major Applewhite or something.
Yes.
Who is the Texas guy?
Major Applewhite.
Right? Major Applewhite.
Yep.
It was that game that Texas played. Was it Nebraska? It might have been Nebraska, and it was an unbelievable game, and he had an unbelievable performance. And then I would say the bowl game is maybe Texas USC.
You are correct in the Texas USC. Texas USC is. It is I believe that's the 2006 Rose Bowl.
Yes, it was the 05 season, correct?
The 2006 Rose Bowl.
Me and our former, it was you and me and our friend who was, no longer with us. Watching that game. That was a great time. I think it was at your place.
That was, and still one of the greatest football games on any level, anywhere. And the reason Vince Young will never, ever have to buy a drink or a meal or probably pay for an apartment in the state of Texas, for God's sake, because that was just a remarkable game. Yes, that is your bowl game. That's still the highest rated 14 years later. Soon to be 15 years later, I guess, really. The regular season game, you've still not gotten right there. Lenny has a Florida State game. That is not correct either.
Yeah, because you said 25, and that was a key because that 96 season was those 2 games, the one during the regular season and then the one in the bowl game. But
yeah, the Choke-a-Doke game was also a highly rated game.
Right, and the one they were just blitzing Warfel the whole time, and then Spurrier made the simple adjustment to just put him in the shotgun, and it made all the difference, and they just destroyed Florida State after that.
He learned the lesson of protection for that game. Sadly, he could never do that while the head coach of the Washington football team. Never could quite figure out that protecting your quarterback is important. All right, before we move on and talk a little about college football and what happened over the weekend, anything else in the NFL? Because we can circle back to the NFL, and we certainly will. We have 2 games coming up today. The only undefeated team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, against a Washington football team. And I got to tell you, who would have thought that the teams coming into this season that we thought would be the best in the NFC least, the Cowboys and the Eagles, given the fact that they had the most settled quarterback position, everything, they are at the bottom of that division. And we've talked about the Giants. Washington also been playing well as of late. So that should be a fun. And then there's a later game that I probably won't watch, but we'll discuss that. I believe who's involved in that? Is there anyone in?
Yeah, the Miami Dolphins fans are going to be very interested in that game.
That's really going to be an interesting game because Buffalo doesn't have a lot to play for at this.
Sure,
point.
They do. If they lose, they're tied with the Dolphins.
Yeah,
the AFC East.
Doesn't matter. They're in. They're in.
Oh, into the playoffs. Yeah, good call because it doesn't matter if you win the play. If you win,
they're not going to get the.
They're not going to get the bye, and they're in the playoffs. That's a very good point.
They just don't have that much to play for. And,
not really.
And San Francisco,
they have everything to play for.
My goodness,
they could be 6-6 along with Arizona and Minnesota.
The Giants and the Niners make a run, and that's your NFC Championship game at the end. The Niners and the Giants. Who's the quarterback now for the 49ers? Jeff Lundberg against Ariel Stevens,
against the New York Giants quarterback, who's a new guy too.
Famous Baltimore comedian Nick Mullins is the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Hopefully he is not that funny tonight. Hopefully
what's that?
Hopefully his jokes don't land tonight.
There's a school of thought that offense is working better with him than it was with Garoppolo, which is really.
I disagree with that.
Probably not, but he is playing well. I mean, and he is an unknown.
He's okay. He's limited. Helpful. He's limited.
Just limiting his mistakes as well, though. So I think you're sandbagging. You're just complaining. Nah, they don't stand a chance. Are you kidding me?
No, I mean, what the biggest problem the 49ers have is their back end defense. It's been that case ever since Jim Haslett exposed that before the Super Bowl, and that's still the case now. They got torched with Devontae Adams. They got torched with DK Metcalf, and they've got torched by DeAndre Hopkins. So, I mean, and now granted, those are elite wide receivers, but they've got one now in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. So,
yeah.
I'm worried about that.
I think
Stephon Diggs, if they can contain Stephon Diggs, Niners have a very good chance of winning.
I think they're gonna play very well, and I would not, if I had to pick somebody, I would probably pick Buffalo, and I think Buffalo is what, a 3-point favorite in the game.
I think they're only one.
Is it that? Good Lord.
Yeah. I don't get that.
Yeah.
Joe Connolly says I should be happy they canceled the Sun Bowl today.
I was just going to let you know. They canceled the Sun Bowl.
I feel bad for those kids now because Jeff really turned my head around.
I was going to say Joe must not have been listening lately because Mark no longer feels that way. He's very
I'm sad for those kids.
What are the kids from Kentucky and Purdue going to do, Mark? What are the kids from Kentucky and Purdue going to do?
Well, they're going to be sad. They're going to be sad that, they're going to chalk it up to 2020, just like all the seniors did who were 2019, 2020 kids, just like a lot of seniors who were 2020, 21 kids. There's a lot of high school and college kids who have been seriously affected by COVID-19 and are going to remember 2020 as a little bit of a shitstorm. And this is just part of it. Those poor Kentucky Purdue kids.
If this is a little bit of a shitstorm, I don't ever want to see a serious Cat 5 shitstorm because wow.
It's true. It's very, very true. Also, Joe Connolly joined us late. Joe, we were on that bus already. Joe is convinced that the NFC East winner will play the Cleveland Browns in the Super Bowl, and we have already called a Giants-Browns Super Bowl. So,
which, oh, by the way, if that doesn't have the best ratings of any Super Bowl, then I just don't believe in America anymore.
Wow. Well,
of course, it's worldwide ratings at this point in time.
It's
so I
true.
just don't believe in the average television audience anymore. I should say that as opposed to America.
Now
I still believe in America.
Yeah, and I just don't know what it even means anymore. The average TV, the way people consume everything. By the way, Lenny Rowe with one of those crazy Notre Dame Florida State games is absolutely correct. The 1993 Florida State Notre Dame game. That is the game got a lot of discussion recently because that was Notre Dame won that game.
Ishmael, and then the next week they lost to Boston College.
Boston College, absolutely right.
I remember that very well.
That is still the highest rated, 27 years later, still the highest rated college football game.
Raheem Ishmael, what was his first name?
Rocket
Ishmael.
Right. And Quadri Ishmael was his brother, played at Minnesota. He was the missile.
But Rocket Ishmael was on Notre Dame at that point and had a phenomenal year. Yep. They lost that one game to Boston College. They beat Colorado in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. They were right there. I think Florida State also had a loss. So that's one of those funky things.
Florida State lost in Notre Dame.
Yeah. So Florida State, they both had one loss.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame beat Florida State head-to-head, Johnny.
Yep.
And you really think Notre Dame has an advantage?
That's the exception that proves the rule.
Just so you don't take a beating on Twitter, Mark. Rahib,
yeah, it's Raheem Ishmael.
But they called him Rocket, right?
Yeah, Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah. I thought you said Raheem.
No, I think he actually said Raheem.
I don't know what I said, but yes, you're right. If I would have misplaced an M for a B, I could have taken a beating on
It's
Twitter.
over, Johnny.
You really crowd. It really is.
Actually,
we're hoping for that. We're hoping for a beating from the woke crowd because that will at least give us some attention.
Yes, indeed. All right.
These little known old white guys are saying wrong names of people who are named after, blah, blah, blah.
Where were you going with that? That just seemed like that had nefarious undertones.
I stopped it midway.
Well, Good Lord. Oh, my God. This is all.
I have once told Rahib Ishmael to get off my lawn.
That's right. Listening to your rap music and your.
He got off there like a rocket.
One more thing for the NFL. Greg Williams got fired as the defensive coordinator of the hapless New York Jets yesterday. Now, we had a little text discussion with our friend Lenny Mark about, Lenny had said something about how can anybody pick the Jets? And we both thought that the Jets could give Las Vegas trouble. We thought that there was a possibility that Las Vegas, they might struggle in that game. And they should have lost the football game.
No, they should have. They should have lost the football game. We talked about how odd the Raiders are and how they've lately under Gruden not performed well late in the season.
No, they fold.
Even calling me an elitist right now, which is I just don't understand that. But at any rate, it's so odd that a New York Jets football team that hasn't won a game and whose entire coaching staff have made hundreds of bad calls throughout the season. Hundreds. That the defensive coordinator gets fired because of one bad call.
Oh, I'd have fired him too.
Well, I mean, yeah. And all the defensive players are going, what the hell was that? This, that, and the other. Obviously, it was a stupid call. Obviously, the Raiders are miraculously still in the playoff hunt in the AFC because of Greg Williams. But it just shows you what a pathetic organization. I mean, they have a pathetic organization.
Well, that's why I said Greg Williams.
Ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're pathetic.
Greg Williams may be the winner in this because he's the Jets coach who gets a head start on finding another job because they're all going to be in that position in the end of December. I mean, some of those guys, obviously, you can't paint everybody, but Gase is going to be fired. That whole staff is largely going to be looking for work.
Does anyone hire a New York Jets coach?
Well,
or a member of the coaching staff. Does anyone do that? And if they do, doesn't that expose the ridiculous old boys network still somehow in place in the National Football League?
Derek Abbott with a great response. Greg Williams is the reason why everyone in America now knows what cover zero is. Williams just made everyone smarter. Positive thinking.
I think the Jets may be the best trolls of all time to not fire Adam Gase and to fire a defensive coach.
Well, did they just let Gase do it? I mean, it really is. It is odd. Now, I do think that we talked about.
I think that first pick is what they want. They want to keep Gase in there.
A couple of reasons. Yeah. First is that they don't want, the team to get fired up and win like their last 3 games to then fall to the 3rd spot and settle for the tackle from Nebraska.
Against Jacksonville right now,
And I don't think they want them to have success too, because I don't think then you start to get everybody going, well, listen, this guy, there's continuity here, which again, it's continuity to the team that hadn't won any games. So I'm not really sure what the big deal is there, but I think that's probably their reason. Lenny asking if Greg Williams wasn't part of Bountygate. Oh yeah. Yeah. Greg Williams has been called out by a lot of people. Randy Moss called out Greg Williams a few weeks ago when there were some plays by the Jets defenders that seemed a bit dirty. I can't remember, it's a number of weeks ago, but Randy Moss was just out front about this is his teams. They all cheat. This is what they do. They're cheap. He teaches them how to be a cheap shot and they're a cheap shot team. So Williams, former head coach Greg Williams, who once
Browns, right?
Angrily agreed to an interview with me, and he was just mad the whole time because I guess ESPN had said something about it. It wasn't quite Lou Piniella who wouldn't talk to me because they'd had a microphone in the dugout, and Lou was about 8 courts in and just screaming at his relief pit. Oh, he was just losing it. And I love Lou Piniella.
Hungover day. He was just hungover, and he was he looked so bad. He looked like he had been beaten up by every human in Tampa before he rolls into the spring training game. But so you interviewed Greg Williams.
I interviewed him when he was the head coach of the Browns. Yeah. And something had happened and he didn't like what ESPN had reported there. I'm sure there was, some sort of defensive cheap shot thing or something. In any case, when he finally acquiesced to it, because I think our producer, the aforementioned Keith Abbott, the oft-mentioned Keith Abbott, I should say, it had a relationship with him, so he acquiesced to it. But you could tell it was just like the whole time he's just seething, thinking that I'm in some way, Sal Palantonio. God forbid that ever happened to me. And he just didn't want to talk to me. And then he said, I did because I had a good time at your joint for my birthday. And it turns out he was at the ESPN Zone in LA. But whatever, it all works out. But I'm not surprised they fired him after that, because that was just God Almighty. And for the Raiders, the thing I pictured immediately for the Raiders, because this is not your granddad's Raider team. It's not the Al Davis go deep, Raider team.
Was on that play.
And on that play, they finally had to wake up the Echoes play, because mainly they're 4 or 5 yards on the ground, grinded out on some play action pass. They are not the team they used to be. And wasn't it just the most remarkable? And then against the Jets, which let's remember, that was the Heidi game back in the day. That's an AFL matchup. They played in the playoffs. Joe Namath will tell
major rivalry.
Joe Namath has said beating the Raiders in the AFL championship game actually felt better than even beating the Colts in the NFL, because they had lost to the Raiders so many times.
And right after that, he'll let you know that if you get in on the deadline, you can get your Medicare benefits. You can get gold.
You can buy gold.
You can get these Medicare benefits, but you got to do it before the deadline, and it's free. No, I give him so much credit. I give Joe Namath so much credit, because he's Joe Namath. He's lived Joe Namath's life, and he's still got gigs. He's still got people hiring him, for crying out loud.
And he's such a sweet guy. Remember, I've interviewed him. I remember him at one point.
ESPN The Weekend.
At one point, he was on the boardwalk at Disney's boardwalk, where the ESPN club is, and he was just sitting out on a bench. And one of our producers saw him, and it's like, do you want to come in and do an interview? We'll do. And he couldn't do it, but because he only had like 15 minutes, but he wouldn't let the producer leave. He wanted to talk about football with him on this bench for the 15 minutes.
Should have brought a camera out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was probably pushback from the laziest man I ever worked with. The man whose name of his autobiography is "That Nap Made Me Sleepy." Ugh, my goodness. Now we're going on.
But it has to do with him not favoring you in the auditions. That's where it boils down to.
Nope, that's not it.
Come on, it does.
It's not. You didn't favor me in the auditions. I'm still working with you.
Of course I did. I called our good friend Alice and told her what you needed to prepare for the callback. I don't think anyone else got that call.
You just set me up you set it up so my failure when you want to discuss the Dennis Rodman going to the Lakers was
that was not my choice. I did not want to talk basketball. Believe me.
All right. Let's talk a little about college football. I forgot to bring this up on the Friday show because I guess it had just happened the day before. But I want to send out kudos to the folks running college football, and we don't often do that. I sent you, Mark, the really great article about maybe it's time for college football, the Power 5 college football teams to break away from the NCAA because those entities are not the same in any way, shape, or form. But I want to take my hat off to them for putting together the Coastal Carolina BYU game last minute. It gave BYU an opportunity, and we talked about them. We thought they were underranked and that they deserved better. Gave them an opportunity to play against a top 25 team and a Coastal Carolina team that, no matter what Colin Cowherd said, is actually a good football team. There is absolutely no doubt that their head coach is not long for Myrtle Beach. There's no doubt about that.
We gave them the after further review kiss of death, BYU I'm talking about right now.
We did. But I want to take my hat off to throwing that game together last minute. And it was, for BYU, maybe they did themselves a disservice because they, a couple of other things that happened above them and they remained undefeated. Maybe they'd have gotten into the playoff. They're not going to now because they end up losing to the Chanticleers. But man, that made me so happy to see that.
I agree. That's a great example of the agility. We've talked about this. You want to be agile, you want to be facile, and the NCAA has shown that. And I think what this COVID thing has done, it's just forced people to get out of whatever comfort, regardless. Depending on the kind of character you are, you hold on with your teeth to what you know as long as you can. But this thing has forced everyone to do at least some level of reinventing, even the NCAA.
Yeah.
And that is a happy thought, John. I agree with you. I couldn't believe that game was on the docket, and I couldn't believe it was happening. And then, of course, Coastal Carolina wins. Now, does that mean they're in the top 10 or they vault all the way to 14 or whatever it was?
Well, no, then everybody will think that, BYU was overranked now, certainly. But I do think Coastal Carolina made a good argument for that they are a team that nobody's heard of. Somewhat like Boise State, though Boise State was a little bit of a slower build, but a team that deserves
it. Was a real, like,
I think they're only in there
by the sea,
and they are actually by the sea. They're in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, so that actually worked.
Beautiful location.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this is only their 5th season in FBS, if I'm not incorrect. They have just moved up to that level recently, so that is it's a great win for them, and I think they're not going to be in the mix, but they deserve, Mark, in my mind, what I'll just refer to as a New Year's Day bowl game. They may not actually occur on New Year's Day at this point, but they deserve that if they continue to win out because they beat a top 15 team, and there will be teams, Mark, as you know, in bowl games that never sniffed a victory over a top 15 team.
I would say most, John. I would say most. And again, doesn't matter anymore. Because I've seen the light. I've seen the light with this.
Have you? Very nice.
I have. Doesn't matter that most teams haven't sniffed a win against a top 15 team, maybe even a matchup against a top 15 team.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. By the way, Derek Abbott pointing out that Coastal Carolina center, who's kind of a folk hero, is 5'9", 290. And he's built like an office mini fridge, and he absolutely is. I bring it up because I set as my goal for the listeners and viewers of After Further Review that next Halloween I will go dressed as the CCU center because I am essentially 5'9". All I have to work on is the 290, and I think I can get there.
How would your wife feel about that? Because I know you would be fine with trying to get to 290. I know you would be. I
want to be a William Conrad impersonator. That's my whole job. That's my gig.
No, that's a great thing. I want to be a Wilford Brimley impersonator, which I think I could do. I just need to grow the mustache.
Give us this one. Diabetes.
Diabetes.
Well, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Very much. And you enjoy oatmeal.
I enjoy oatmeal, and I could do that scene in Absence of Malice, where he's the lawyer talking to Paul Newman and Sally Field. That's a movie you should see again, John Pelkey.
Been a long time.
Absence of Malice.
Been a long time.
Underrated.
Watching the Hulu series Staged. Presently.
I've heard it's unbelievable. Our friend Tim Williams gave us the recommendation. And would you concur with his recommendation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's Michael Sheen and David Tennant playing Michael Sheen and David Tennant, who were supposedly the premise of it is they were going to be doing a show on the West End. And obviously things got canceled because of COVID. And the director, who's a gentleman named Simon, he's a director or actor in England as well, playing himself. He's much less successful than these guys. And he's trying to hold this production together because he thinks if he's worked with, he knows Tennant better, but if he works with Tennant and Sheen and it's well received, it will push his career forward. So he is talking them into rehearsing the show via Skype. And so the whole thing, they do pull out of Skype and you get to see their lives, but it is really, really funny. I will warn anyone who has an issue with accents. Michael Sheen is Welsh. David Tennant is Scottish. A solid 30% of what they say you will not understand.
Do closed caption.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what I always do with those kind of shows. And because I'm old and I
respect you a little less right now. Just now. This could be a breaking point for me.
Okay. No, I do that a lot. I have to admit, I do that a lot.
Wow.
It's fine. It's like, I want to understand what they're saying. I mean, why would you advocate not understanding 30%, which is what you just quoted? 30%.
Don't need to be spoon fed. You know, I should catch up.
So you just gotta figure it out. You just gotta kind of
go to catch up.
Yep, fill in the blanks. Gotta speculate as to what they're thinking.
Yeah, you gotta catch up. You gotta be more agile, Mark.
I don't know. I think being agile is using a tool at your disposal to understand something, a piece of art, more than you would. It's a tool at your disposal. It's like watching a foreign film. It really is a foreign film. Welsh and Scottish, they're not really speaking English. Let's face it.
All right. Well, then, fire up the closed captioning, I guess. And
so anyway, you loved Mank. Hey, I heard that.
Love Mank. Yeah. For anybody who is looking for a movie to watch on Netflix about Herman Mankiewicz, the screenwriter of Citizen Kane, among other things. And the great Gary Oldman doing some quality work. Lots of fun, shot in black and white. So there may be a whole group of folks who don't care for that. There's a whole group of folks that just won't watch the black and white film, won't watch a film with subtitles, Mark.
Well, obviously, then they will never do the closed captioning idea that I've recommended to people who
I know,
don't
and
understand,
I won't do dubbed,
heavy Welsh or heavy Scottish accent.
You see, I'm such an elitist when it comes to that. I will not do a dubbed movie. I won't do that. Can't. Got to be original with subtitles.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. And I don't care if it's black and white or not. All right. So not much else in college football. Everybody, the usual suspects continued to roll. You always bring up the Florida. I feel the same way about the Gators that I felt about them before, which is I think defensively. They're not going to hold up against an onslaught that they're going to see from Alabama. If I had to bet right now, I think they lose to the Tide by probably 2 touchdowns or more.
I think you fight to keep it within double digits. I really do. I think Florida's that good of a team that you can keep it to 7, 8, 9. You can fight to keep it to double digits. And you almost had a real nice, although it really wouldn't have necessarily helped you that much, but Texas A&M struggled with Auburn.
Yeah, they did.
And I like Jimbo Fisher. I do. And he's, kind of made a program there, especially in this time, this time of the century, this time of our lives in 2020. And that's a great story. I think it really is a great story. But I was rooting for Auburn. Auburn so that you guys would have a clearer path to the playoffs. Because I'm rooting for. I like the Gators. I like Trask a lot, and I like your offense. And Mullins is, annoys me at times for obvious reasons, but I like him. I like him as a coach. I like the program.
Well,
you're a
Mississippi
big
State
fan. You're a good friend. I'm a big Miami Dolphin fan because of Riley. I'm rooting for the Redskins, even though
it's not their name.
I'm sorry, you're right. Good call. I'm rooting for the team formerly known as that, the Washington football team. Although tonight I do have an interest in the Steelers as well because I have friends who are Steelers fans. So that's going to be a fun game. Actually.
Well, and just seeing
enjoy that game.
And just to see, kickoff in just a couple of hours, actually, I think, and Jeff and I are Washington football team fans, just be interested to see how that front four, that pass defense of Washington, how they can get in Ben Roethlisberger's face, because Roethlisberger was the best, is still among the best, but is the best at buying time in the pocket.
Sure.
Other guys run better, but first of all, he's enormous. And strong, and he could buy a lot of time in the pocket. And that offense has changed a lot. They've got a very West Coast feel about them right now.
It's a quick strike. It's quick. It's quick. They're using the run game to set up the pass, or they're using the pass game to set up the run, I should say. And but he is the guy. I mean, he was the guy to extend the play. He wasn't a runner. To your point. But boy, oh boy, he could buy some time, like you're saying, and it's going to be a lot of fun. That's a good matchup. It's a fun matchup.
It is a good matchup.
And Pittsburgh, they're on like 4 days rest, 3 days rest, 2 days rest. They played like 7 games in 8 days or something.
Well, and essentially too, they've had like over 2 weeks of their schedule being interrupted in some way. And that even to me is more, because these guys, you have a little bit of a hiccup, but it's just, you remember that game against the Ravens was canceled and rescheduled 3 times, I believe.
Yeah, and why did the Ravens get the extra day? That's not fair.
That doesn't seem fair, does it?
Does not. Now, granted, Pittsburgh's at home, but still, it doesn't seem fair. I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. And basically, it was the Ravens' fault. Wasn't it the Ravens' fault that all those things got rescheduled? Basically, right? Didn't they have like 48 guys who were positive?
I think the reason why they get the extra day is because not only was it their fault that time, but it's their fault that they get an extra day because then they have another scare.
I think you're right.
Before this game, so they have to be outside of that 4-day window for the proper testing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think as in no good deed goes unpunished. I don't know what the flip side of that is, but apparently for the Ravens, it's no bad deed goes punished. I guess.
Right. There it is. No bad deed goes punished.
Derek Abbott pointing out this tons of RPO, run pass option stuff for the Steelers and rub routes to get guys open. Yeah, it's a completely different offense, really, from what we're used to from them.
And there's Tomlin being Tomlin is proving himself to be. I mean, he may get Coach of the Year. Why wouldn't he get Coach of the Year if they continue to? I mean, Tomlin has done a great job.
Yeah, if Andy Reid repeats, then does it just become Coach of the Year? Because no one repeats, really. I mean, there are a lot of guys in the running for that, in the running for that right now.
I agree.
It should be interesting to see. All right. Anything else? I know we have that whole. We'll get into that discussion, Mark, in a later show about the article that I sent you about the NCAA Power 5 college football conferences breaking away from the NCAA, because what they talked about is, the difference between what a Power 5 conference football team is like to the rest of the Power 5 is that they're further apart from or the rest of the sports, that they're so much further away from the rest of the sports at those Power 5 conferences than a Power 5 player in another sport, like a baseball player, is from a football championship series colleges. That they have separated that was very clumsily said. It was hard to say, but that they have separated themselves so much that it bears no resemblance even to college basketball, because remember, the NCAA owns March Madness. That's a much bigger part of that's a big part of the NCAA pie. And the championship in college football is not an NCAA. It's a separate entity altogether.
I agree. And it's interesting because it's all about the governing body. It's all about who's going to be the governing body. And the fact that they've met with Mark Emmert, I think is his last name, the president of the NCAA, that this organization has met with them and they've discussed things. there's a real possibility that this thing goes forward, and that there's just a separate governing body from the rest of college football rules. And in the end, as much as we slag on the NCAA, I mean, I do believe 98 to 99% of the people out there are doing everything they can, are really doing their best to do what's best for all those student athletes, and not just the football players, but all of them.
Yeah,
I really do think they're trying to do their best, and this is such an anomaly, to your point, and to their point, that why don't you take this off the NCAA's plate?
Yeah,
and it makes a lot of sense, and they're having discussions. Everything's very civilized.
Right, Mark Emmert.
Mark, I think
Mark Emmert.
Emmerich. That's wrong.
It's Mark Emmert. Yeah, it's these discussions have taken place, and they weren't taking place under Miles Brand and people who were in charge of the NCAA back in the day. So it is interesting, and as we always say, follow the money. And all of the money right now is in college football.
Yep.
Even those bowl games that Mark hates, including that Mark has turned the corner on, and
I formerly hated.
And the minute you turn the corner on it, the NCAA starts canceling them. The Sun Bowl is down for this year. It's like, we've made Ferrara happy. Yeah, you doomed them. You doomed them with your fandom, Mark.
I realized that's all it took. That's all it took for them to go away. Damn it! I'm just kidding.
All right. Any predictions for tonight's game? Mark, your team, Buffalo and San Francisco.
I told you my worry. My worry is the deep threat of Stephon Diggs and the back end of the San Francisco 49ers. And again, if the Niners can contain him, then I think they have a very solid chance of winning the game. The thing about it is that I think they do play the Washington football team after that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have another game that I can't remember, but it's a team that's it's Dallas. It's Dallas. So it's Washington and Dallas. If they can get by Buffalo tonight, there's a shot that they can be 8-6 coming into their final two games against Arizona and Seattle, and Garoppolo and Kittle will be back for those two games. It's a long shot. It's a lot to hope for. I have a feeling Buffalo's going to take this one. And I think Washington's going to give Pittsburgh a game, but Pittsburgh, man, they just know how to win. Ugly or not, they know how to win. So I think Pittsburgh pulls it out, and I think Buffalo pulls it out. That's my prediction tonight.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh probably will pull it out, though I think that game will be close, and I do like Buffalo. Jeff, do you agree or see an upset somewhere?
If I do see an upset, I think it's going to be the Washington football team ending the undefeated season for Pittsburgh, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I agree.
I probably lean a little towards where maybe the 49ers can pull the upset, but wouldn't be shocked in either of these cases. Would not be shocked in either of these cases. Again, interesting football games. And who would have thought, Mark, that, and Jeff, because Jeff and I are both watching us, who would have thought our teams would be playing an interesting football games this late in the season, given some things that have happened over the last 5-6 weeks?
No one would.
Yeah, no.
It's unbelievable. Who would have thought that the Minnesota Vikings would be, as of now, qualified for the playoffs?
And the New York Giants are the team in the NFC nobody wants to play.
What had happened over the last few weeks.
Right. And in the NFC, the New York Giants are the team.
And they were 0-5.
Yeah. Well, who do you rather play right now, the Giants or the Buccaneers?
I don't think any team, if I'm not mistaken, seriously, I don't think any team, John, that started 0-5 has ever made the playoffs in the history of the National Football League. History.
Hey,
I think I'm right on that.
It's funny because I was thinking San Francisco was the favorite in that game, and that is who I believe will win. And Lenny said they are now the favorite in that game.
Wow, they were down by
San
2-3, and then it was 1. Oh, you do? Oh, so you okay?
I do think San Francisco is going to beat Buffalo. I don't know what it is with Buffalo. I don't find them that attractive.
You don't buy them yet.
No.
I like Josh Allen. I like some of what they're doing up there, but. All right, I tell you, it just week in and week out.
It's not even
talking about the Rams,
49ers.
We're talking about the 49ers. Yeah, who would have thought? Because 4 weeks ago, even it was Arizona is on the come and Seattle, and who are we talking about? The Rams and the 49ers. What a great year! What a great year!
It has been a great year, actually. It's been a great year in the National Football League.
Jeff, did you listen to the Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East yet?
I didn't get an opportunity to do it yet, but it is definitely on the agenda.
We need to talk.
You know what's funny is I have gone back to listening to CDs because I have a tube amp that I listen through some nice speakers.
So
I listen to CDs, so I've got to get it onto a CD so I can listen to it. I don't want to listen to it in my headphones.
I fully understand. Everybody do it. Go out and listen. But your homework over the weekend, listen to Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East. We will and listen to only one side. And I checked into it, Mark. The El Mocambo side is the third side of Love You Live.
So you're right.
So it's like they slip in an acoustic set. You know how the Stones like to do that, slip in it. So they slipped in the club set to go with the mediocre, and I'm being very generous.
You are.
Arena crap that's on that album. Best part of that album, the El Mocambo side and the album cover. And outside of that.
But that El Mocambo side is
it's fun.
Great side of rock and roll.
That place had a lot of awesome stuff because Stevie Ray Vaughan at the live at the El Mocambo. Oh,
it was,
phenomenal.
it was like, the Beacon Theater in New York or one of those places that, everybody had to go and play there. Even when they outgrew the club, you would go and play there. And there are more albums that have been recorded there as well. So there you go, folks. Check it out. Cracking Up is, I think, my favorite of all, though that version of Around and Round is awfully good.
Come on.
For Mark Ferrera, Jeff Taylor, I'm John Pelkey. Thanks for listening to After Further Review. We will talk to you next time, everybody. Peace out.